Well, for the fixed overhead variances, again, I can say that variance is the variance in overhead cost which is added to the product cost, right? So that concept still remains the same. That variance means the variance in overheads which are added to the product cost. So the variance is basically overheads shown in a cost sheet minus the actual overheads. Now the overheads shown in the cost sheet, that is interesting, that is important to understand. Let us understand that with one example. So for the fixed overheads, I will begin with one example. And in case of fixed overhead variances, all your formulas under fixed overhead variances are different. Yes, they are different from material, labor, variable overheads. Even the data table that we will make will be a little bit different. Yeah. So for example of fixed overheads, let me directly show you a data table. In case of fixed overheads, what kind of data do we need? Well, for fixed overhead variances, we will require the data about standard as given, standard for actual, and actual. Just like any other variances, for fixed overheads also we will need standard as given, standard for actual, and actual. However, in most of my other variances, in all my material, labor, and variable overhead variances, you know that my variance calculations were considering only standard for actual and actual. So you were comparing actual only with the standard for actual. Did you ever compare your actual with original standard given? No. In case of material, labor, and variable overhead variances, my actual was never compared with the original given standard. However, under fixed overhead variances, we are gonna do both. Under fixed overhead variances, my actual will be compared with standard for actual. Yes, as usual. My actual will also be compared with the standard given. Both kind of comparisons we are gonna make. Now, if I am gonna explain both these comparisons, then you might get confused that I'm comparing actual with which standard, because you notice that as per the language, both of these are named as a standard. Now, because both are named as a standard, it might create a confusion that which standard am I talking about. Well, just to remove that confusion, I suggest we change the name. Instead of calling this as standard as given, let me call that as budget. And instead of calling this as a standard for actual, let me call that as simply standard. So now onwards, for whatever formulas I give you, yes, for whatever formulas I give you in any of my formula, when I say standard, it means standard for actual. And when I say budget, it means the original standard as given. Because we are going to compare both of them with the actual. Yes, we never compared the original standard until now, but now for fixed overhead variances, we are going to compare that budget also. And well, because we are going to compare this budget also, hence it is necessary to use a different name to describe that, right? Let's say, let's say that my let's say my budgeted fixed overheads cost was estimated rupees 1 lakh, but my actual fixed overheads cost incurred is rupees 1,30,000. But I also compare that based on my production units. As per my original budget, my production was supposed to be, let's say, 5,000 units. But my actual production has been, let's say, 6,000 units. Now, basically, can I compare my actual cost of 6,000 units with the budgeted cost of 5,000 units? Normally, you say that no, we cannot compare. So for all the variances until now, what did we learn? Well, I cannot compare my actual cost of 6,000 units with the budgeted cost of 5,000 units. What you should do is you must create standard for actual. Well, if actual units are 6,000, generally this is what we have done. You bring that 6,000 units in the center table here, and you identify standard cost for 6,000 units. Well, if the standard cost of 5,000 units is 1 lakh, then standard cost of 6,000 units should be 1,20,000. Yeah, logically, if the standard cost of 5,000 units production is 1 lakh rupees, then the standard cost for 6,000 units production should be 1,20,000. That is simply cross multiply. And now I compare this standard cost with the actual. See, this is the kind of variances we have always calculated, and I continue to follow that same method here. Yes, my fixed overhead cost variance, the very first variance, is calculated using the exact same method. Let's see, my fixed overhead cost variance, the first variance is still calculated using that exact same method. So you notice I have given the formula as my routine formula, the same formula which I have used since the starting of the chapter. Standard cost for actual production minus the actual cost, that gives me 1,20,000. Standard cost for actual production minus actual cost 1,30,000, and that makes it a difference of rupees 10,000 adverse. This 10,000 adverse is my fixed overhead cost variance. Now, I know you might have a problem in this comparison. You might have a doubt in this comparison. What is happening here? I'm comparing my actual cost with the standard cost. Normally, for any other item of cost, this would be a correct comparison. However, in case of fixed overheads, you might have doubts regarding this comparison. In fact, for fixed overheads, you might have doubts regarding this 1,20,000. Once again, I ask you that 1,20,000. If the cost of 5,000 units is 1 lakh, then the cost for 6,000 units should be what? You cross multiplied. You can cross multiply and get me this 1,20,000. However, think again. Is it correct to do cross multiply? Is it correct to do that cross multiply when we are talking about fixed overheads? When we are talking about fixed overheads like for example rent cost, or maybe accountant salary, or maybe any other indirect cost which is a fixed item of cost. So when we are talking about fixed cost like rent or maybe accountant salary or maybe any other item, is it correct to do such cross multiply? Well, definitely no. There is no concept of cross multiply here. Like for 5,000 units, if the estimated rent was 1 lakh, then for 6,000 units, what should be estimated rent? The estimated rent of 5,000 units is 1 lakh. Then for 6,000 units production, your estimated rent should be same 1 lakh. Yes, for 6,000 units also, your estimated rent should be same 1 lakh. Then what is this 1,20,000? Well, it seems that 1,20,000 written in the standard appears to be wrong. Well, it is not wrong. What does that 1,20,000 indicate? What does that 1,20,000 indicate? Well, that I will explain in a separate discussion. It is very interesting to understand that what does this 1,20,000 indicate. So to understand that 1,20,000, I make a separate discussion down here. This 1,20,000 standard fixed overheads that I have written indicates what? Well, does it indicate the estimated overheads for 6,000 units production? Well, no, it does not indicate the estimated overheads for 6,000 units production. For 6,000 units production, your estimated overheads should remain same, 1 lakh, not 1,20,000. Then what exactly is this 1,20,000? Well, this 1,20,000 is rather the absorbed overheads. It is the absorbed overheads which is already added to product cost, which is already shown in the cost sheet. I'll tell you why. Yes, this absorbed, this 1,20,000 is the overheads which is already added to the product cost, which is already shown in the cost sheet. Now, how is overheads added to the product cost? How are overheads added to the cost sheet? Remember, overheads added to the cost sheet are based on absorption rate. Now, in this question, what will be absorption rate? Overheads are added to product cost using absorption rate. Absorption rate will be equal to, let's say, budgeted overheads divided by, let's say, budgeted units. Now, in this question, in this particular question, my budgeted overheads was 1 lakh. My budgeted units was 5,000. So my absorption rate would have been, so my budgeted absorption rate would have been 1 lakh divided by 5,000 units, and that should be 20 per unit. Yeah. So this rate 20 per unit is the rate at which overheads are added to product cost using budgeted absorption rate. That is 20 per unit. Now, if the overheads are added to product cost using this rate of 20 per unit, then my cost sheet will contain overheads according to this rate of 20 per unit. Yes, so my cost sheet will contain overheads according to this rate of 20 per unit. So this is how my cost sheet would appear. My cost sheet will contain some amount for direct material, it will contain some amount for direct labor, and it will contain some amount for overheads. But the overheads contained in the cost sheet will be based on absorption rate. That absorption rate is 20 per unit. For how many units? Well, my cost sheet will contain the absorption rate 20 per unit for the units that you actually produced. My actual production in this question, is not 5,000. My actual production in this question has been 6,000 units. So if you have actually produced 6,000 units, then your cost sheet will contain details about 6,000 units. So if you actually produced 6,000 units, so overhead cost of 6,000 units is already shown in the cost sheet. 6,000 units into 20 per unit, meaning that gives me 1,20,000. You see, this 1,20,000 is already shown in your cost sheet. This 1,20,000 is already a part of your product cost. And from that product cost, eventually, you would have got cost of sales. And that cost of sales eventually goes to the P&L. This cost of sales is the value which would have eventually gone to the P&L. My costing P&L, you know that it contains sales and cost of sales. So this cost of sales is the one which eventually has gone to the P&L. So do you notice that my cost of sales contains how much overheads? This cost of sales contains overheads based on absorption rate. This 1,20,000 overheads as per the absorption rate is called as the absorbed overheads, or you might call that as the recovered overheads. Recovered overheads, absorbed overheads, overheads added to the product cost, overheads added to the cost sheet. All of them are the same thing, right? So my cost sheet contains overheads as per the absorbed overheads, and that absorbed overheads is included in my cost of sales. This cost of sales includes absorbed overheads. So now if the actual overheads is different, now if the actual overheads is more, then only the difference of absorbed and actual you need to show separately. Yeah, so this cost of sales already, the cost of sales value as per my P&L already includes 1.2 lakhs. Yes, it already includes overheads of 1.2 lakhs. Now if the actual overheads is 1.3 lakhs, now if the actual overheads is 1.3 lakhs, then how much overheads do you now need to show separately in the P&L? Your overheads, your P&L already contains 1.2 lakhs overheads on the debit side, but the actual overheads that you have incurred is 1.3 lakhs. So now how much extra overheads you need to further adjust in the P&L? Well, now you need to adjust only 0.1 lakhs. Now you need to adjust only 10,000 rupees overheads in the P&L. That is called as my fixed overhead cost variance. Yes, you understand why does my fixed overhead cost variance turn out to be only 10,000 adverse? It's not 30,000 adverse. Yes, as compared to original budget, I have incurred 30,000 extra. But out of that 30,000 incurred extra, 20,000 extra is already shown in the cost sheet. So it already appears in your P&L. Only remaining 10,000 you need to show separately in the P&L as variances. That's how overhead variances are recorded. I hope you understand this. So my explanation given down here, this explanation here is just to convince you that what is this 1,20,000 indicate. 1,20,000 standard fixed overheads. Does it indicate estimated overheads of 6,000 units? No, it does not indicate the estimated overheads. See, I have cancelled that here. It is not the estimated overheads of 6,000 units. Rather, it indicates the absorbed overheads. Absorbed overheads means the overheads which is already added to the product cost, which is already shown in the cost sheet. So if 1,20,000 is already shown in the cost sheet, you see that here. If 1,20,000 is already shown in the cost sheet and your actual is 1,30,000, so only 10,000 is the extra cost which you now need to debit in the P&L. Only 10,000 rupees extra cost will reduce your profit. Because 1,20,000 has already reduced the profit, now only 10,000 extra cost will reduce your profit. See, that is the reason why under fixed overhead variances, we are comparing actual with 1,20,000. This 1,20,000 is your absorbed overheads. You might also call that as recovered overheads. Recovered overheads simply indicate that this is the overheads which is recovered from the product cost. It is recovered from the customers. When you sell that product, when you recover selling price from the customers, right? Okay. I hope that clarifies exactly what is 1,20,000. See, this understanding was really important. This understanding was really important in order to understand that how is fixed overhead variances different from all my other variances, right? Okay. So with that background, we get the understanding for what is fixed overhead cost variance. Now within that fixed overhead cost variance, we have some components under that. My fixed overhead cost variance can be further divided into two main components called fixed overhead budget variance and fixed overhead volume variance. I'll directly give you the formula for them first. Well, budget variance is pretty simple. It is budgeted overheads minus the actual overheads. Budget variance indicates that yes, only 10,000 extra cost is affecting my profit because 1,20,000 you have already debit in the P&L. So now only 10,000 will affect my P&L. However, as compared to your initial estimate, haven't you incurred significantly more cost? Yeah, as compared to initial estimate of 1 lakh, you have incurred 30,000 extra cost. Now, isn't that also something adverse? Isn't that also something which you should be careful next time? See, just because this is fixed overheads, just because you have already shown 20,000 in the cost sheet doesn't mean spending 20,000 extra was valid. Yes or no? Just because you have already shown 20,000 in the cost sheet, it doesn't mean spending extra 20,000 was valid. No, this is a fixed cost. This is supposed to be fixed overheads. If this was variable overheads, then it is valid. If this was power consumption, then it is valid to spend extra cost for extra units. However, this is rent expense. Is it valid to show extra cost because of extra units? Is it valid to incur extra rent because of extra units? No. In case of rent expense for extra units, incurring extra cost is not valid. So you must show that 20,000 also as a variance. In fact, you must show entire 30,000 as a variance, because as compared to my original budget, I have actually incurred 30,000 extra. Yes, so as compared to, I'm so sorry, I forgot to silent the phone. So as compared to the original budget, I have incurred 30,000 extra. That 30,000 extra is called as my budget variance. So as compared to original budget, I have incurred 30,000 extra. That is my budget variance. While volume variance is a different story now. Volume variance indicates that how much extra cost did I show in the P&L? How much extra cost have I already shown in the P&L because of extra units, because of extra volume? See, imagine this 1,20,000 as if it is absorbed overheads. Absorbed overheads is also called as recovered overheads. Recovered means this is the cost which you have recovered from the customers, because this is the cost which you have added to the selling price, and this is the selling price you have recovered from all the 6,000 units. See, you had estimated to sell only 5,000 units, but if actual production has been 6,000 units, don't you think all 6,000 units must have been sold at that same price? Do you sell first 5,000 units at a different selling price and remaining extra units at a different selling price? No, you must have sold all the units at the same price. Now, if you have sold all the units at the same price, it means that 1,20,000 is the money that you have recovered from your customers. So let's see like this. You have incurred 30,000 extra as compared to initial estimate, but as compared to same initial estimate, you have even recovered 20,000 extra by selling more units. Yeah, you have even recovered 20,000 extra by selling more units. Now this is favorable because you have recovered more money because of more units. Because of more units, you have recovered more money from the customers. Right? This indicates a favorable variance that gives me my favorable volume variance. It goes like this. My volume variance formula goes like this. There is a standard rate per unit multiplied by volume gain or lost. Well, in this question, you have gained volume. You were supposed to produce 5,000 units. You have actually produced 6,000 units. So you have gained volume. You have gained more units. You were able to produce 1,000 units more. Now, just because you were able to produce 1,000 units more, does that allow you to incur more rent? No. So what is the benefit of producing more units? Well, the only benefit of producing more units is that you produced more units, so you sell more units, so you recover selling price from more number of customers. I repeat, you produce more units, so you sell more units, so you recover selling price from more number of customers, and from every customer to whom you sell the product, you are recovering selling price. Every selling price that you recover, every selling price that you recover contains 20 rupees recovered towards fixed overheads. So if I sold 1,000 units extra, then on each of that extra units, I recovered 20 rupees extra. So total, I recovered 20,000 rupees extra because of extra units, because of volume gain. Now this 20,000 extra recovery has happened because of extra units. So this is called as a volume variance. It has happened because of extra volume. So see, my total cost variance 10,000 adverse splits into two reasons. 30,000 is the adverse variance called as extra incurred, while 20,000 is favorable variance indicates extra recovered. See, the word recovered indicates that when I sell these units, I will recover selling price from the customers. So from every customer from whom I recover selling price, from every customer from whom I recover selling price, I am getting 20 rupees towards overheads. If you have produced 1,000 extra units, so you will recover that 20 rupees from those customers. Yes, this is why your volume variance indicates extra recovery. And therefore, these two things are getting set off. As compared to original budget, I incurred 30,000 extra. But against that, I even recovered 20,000 extra from the customers. So my net extra cost affecting P&L is only 10,000 rupees. Imagine, imagine as if you are my boss and I am the supervisor in the company. You are my boss and I am the supervisor in a company. Before you go on a vacation, say you are going on a vacation, before you went on the vacation, you gave me targets. You gave me targets that Devang, you need to produce 5,000 units in the month, and you should you should manage your fixed cost within 1 lakh rupees. You came back after a month. You came back after a month and you asked me to give the report. I gave you this actual report. See, this is the targets that you gave me. This is the actual report that I submit to you. The moment I submit this actual report to you, you saw that my fixed cost has become 1,30,000. You saw that your target given was 1 lakh, and you start blaming me. You start scolding me for spending 30,000 extra cost. Natural, you are my boss. I'm the supervisor. You are the manager. So you start scolding me for spending 30,000 extra fixed cost. You start scolding me that I told you to keep the fixed cost within 1 lakh. Why did you spend 30,000 extra? I will cut that from your salary. You are scolding me that. Now, naturally, when my boss is scolding me for spending 30,000 extra, what is the best argument I can make to my boss? The best way to save myself will be that, sir, agreed that I have incurred 30,000 extra, but please see the next line also. I have also produced extra units than what you told me to. I started arguing that, sir, agreed that I have produced extra, I have incurred extra costs, but please see the next line also. Haven't I also produced extra units? But producing extra units, does that allow me to incur extra rent? No. Does the extra units allow me to incur extra fixed cost? No. Then what is the benefit of producing extra unit? Well, I am explaining my boss. This is what I explained to my boss. Boss, I have produced extra units, agreed that this does not allow me to incur extra fixed cost, but that extra units has given me extra recovery from the customers. Because of extra units, I can sell extra units and I can recover more money from the customers. So against 30,000 extra incurred, I have also recovered 20,000 extra from the customers. So if you have to blame me, if you have to scold me, you scold me not for 30,000, you scold me for only 10,000. This is the argument. I hope you understand this argument. Yeah, see, these are the topics when I really miss the live classes because I want to see the expressions on your face. Yeah, anyways, we can't do that in the recorded session, so let us proceed further. This is my discussion regarding first three variances under fixed overheads. I'll just give you a minute to let that sink in. I'll give you a minute to let that sink in. You don't need to copy anything yet because there will be still many more things that I will add in my example here to cover more concepts, right? But right now, we'll just wait for a moment to let that sink in. I'll just scroll through the entire discussion again. In fact, apart from the example, the other things you can start writing. These things you can start writing, give the heading, this concepts and all. I'll just grab a sip of water. If you heard that, that was just water. The concept about absorption and the concept about recovery of overheads you must have learned in your C intermediate level in overheads chapter. Well, we are just extending that concept over here, right? Okay, now before I proceed to more further variances under fixed overheads, I have one question for you. Of course, you cannot answer me, but I'll create a question and I'll give you an answer within a couple of minutes after that. See, in case of material, labor, and variable overhead variances, in case of these earlier three variances, did we ever talk about a separate variance for extra recovery? Did we ever talk about a separate variance for the volume gain and extra recovery? No. Why not? See, if my volume has increased, if I have produced extra units, then these extra units get sold. When these extra units get sold, so you recover extra money from the customers. Here I said that you recover extra money towards fixed overheads. Now the extra money that I recover towards fixed overheads becomes extra recovery, becomes a variance. But when you sell these units, don't you recover extra money towards material also? Don't you recover extra money towards labor also? You recover extra money towards variable overheads also. Then why did we not show that extra recovery as a variance in material, labor and variable overheads? Why such extra recovery was not shown as variance in material and labor overheads? Think about it. Well, I'll tell you. That extra recovery was not shown as a variance under material and labor because material, labor, and variable overheads are variable expenses. So when I have produced extra units, with the production of extra units, you also incur extra cost and then you recover extra money. So in that case, the extra recovery is actually not a benefit. It is not favorable. Wait, I'll show you that here. So when we talk about fixed overheads, in case of fixed overheads, with the increase in units, why is my arrows going like that? With the increase in units, your cost recovered will increase, and that extra recovery is called as favorable variance. But my question was, doesn't this happen in case of material, labor, and variable overheads also? Like even in case of material cost, labor cost, and variable overheads. In these cases also, with the increase in units, you sell more units to the customer, you recover selling price from more customers, and when you recover selling price from more customers, so your cost recovered is also increasing. With Because of more units, you will recover more material cost. Because of more units, you will recover more labor cost. Because of more units, you even recover more variable overheads. Then why did we never show that as favorable variance? In case of material and labor, we never showed extra recovery as a favorable variance. Why? Well, simply because here we are forgetting one more aspect of comparison. We are forgetting the cost incurred. In case of fixed overheads, the extra recovery is a favorable benefit because in case of fixed overheads, with the increase in units, do you have increase in cost? No. In case of fixed overheads, with the increase in units, the cost incurred does not increase. The cost incurred does not increase because it is a fixed cost. However, in case of material, labor, and variable overheads, in case of material, labor, and variable overheads, with the increase in units, your cost incurred will also increase, your cost recovered will also increase. Well, technically, if incurred is increasing, recovered is also increasing, so there is no benefit over there, no favorable variance. However, in case of fixed overheads, with the increase in units, your fixed cost remains fixed. So the cost incurred does not increase, but the cost recovered is increasing. That's why the extra recovery is called as a favorable variance. Yeah, now you understand that why my calculations under fixed overheads are very much different than all calculations under material and labor and variable overhead variances. Done? Yes? Okay. Okay, enough with that. So that explains my basics under fixed overhead variances. Now, under my fixed overhead variances, we learned budget variance, volume variance, cost variance. This volume variance indicates the extra recovery because of extra units that I got. Now, this extra units that I got could have further few more reasons. Now, what is the reason why I was able to produce extra units? What could be the reason why I was able to produce extra units? Well, there could be three reasons here. Three reasons. Number one, efficiency variance. I'll put down the formulas for each of them, then I'll explain. Okay, so let us understand three components under the fixed overhead volume variance. Say this volume variance, please understand that this indicates the extra recovery because of extra units. Now extra units has given you extra money recovered from the customers, but there is a reason that why did you produce extra units. What could be the reason that you were able to produce extra units? Well, the reason for extra production could be three things. Either because your workers have become more efficient, so they produce extra units, or because your workers worked overtime. Yes, because your workers worked extra time. By working extra time overtime, you got extra units, or you got extra units because you worked for extra days. Yes, so there could be three reasons why you got extra units. These three reasons is now what we will learn. Understand what do these three reasons indicate. Efficiency variance indicates extra recovery because of efficiency. Yep. This is recovery due to efficiency. Capacity variance indicates the extra recovery due to overtime working or because of working extra hours in the given number of days. And calendar variance means extra recovery due to extra days worked. You work for more number of days, then you get more units, and because you got more units, you got more recovery, right? So all of these are connected enough. In fact, let us understand this with one very simple example. A very small simple example first let me make over here. Say normally I take a class for say 3 hours. Yeah, normally in 3 hours of class I am able to explain 3 questions. Normally in a 3 hours class if I'm able to explain 3 questions, however today we were able to do 5 questions. What could be the reason? Well, today we were able to do 5 questions, then what could be the reason? Well, that depends. That depends on the information I give you about ours. Well, today if we did 5 questions, just a minute. Yeah, say today if I was able to solve 5 questions, then what is the reason why I was able to explain 5 questions? Well, that depends on the information that I give you about number of hours. What if I say that today we were able to understand 5 questions because today I took a class of 5 hours? This means that we got extra questions because of working overtime. Yeah, this means that we got extra questions because of working extra hours, because of working overtime, right? But what if I say that I got extra questions because in spite of working 3 hours, we were able to do 5 questions. Now, if we were able to do more questions in the same time, then this indicates what? This indicates efficiency. Yeah, so efficiency and overtime are the two basic reasons. Let's say this is a secondary reason, but efficiency and overtime are the two main reasons for getting extra units. However, extra days is an extension of overtime. When you work extra time, either it is because you did overtime every single day, or you got extra hours because you worked for more number of days. Let us understand both of that, all of that in this example itself. Let us understand all of that within this example itself. Say within this example I give you more details. I give you more details about say hours. So as per the original budget, 5,000 units production should have taken 10,000 hours of production time. Actually, you have produced 6,000 units, and for that actual 6,000 units, actual time taken is 11,800 hours. So actually, you have worked for 11,800 hours producing 6,000 units, right? Also, I give you details about number of days. Well, as per the budget, 1 month should have in 1 month you should have worked for 20 days. But actual in that month, you have actually worked for 22 days in the month. Normally, your company works for 5 days a week, Saturday, Sunday, 2 days off. Normally, your company works for 5 days a week for 4 weeks. So you had estimated your month containing 20 days. But this month, your workers worked for 2 Saturdays in between. Ideally, Saturdays they were not supposed to work, but maybe unko man pada, they felt like working, so they worked for 2 extra Saturdays. So they have actually worked for 22 days. So don't you think that because of extra days you got extra units? Because of extra hours also you got extra units, and because of some efficiency also you got extra units. Let us understand all of that. First, let us start from the extra days. Yes, you worked for extra days. Now, because of extra days, you must have got extra units, and that extra units must have given you extra recovery, right? Acha. According to my estimate, according to the estimate, 10,000 hours you were supposed to work in 20 days. So it indicates how many hours per day. As per the estimate, it indicates 10,000 divided by 20. It indicates 500 hours per day. Yes, my budget indicates a working capacity of 500 hours per day, right? And again, as per the budget, 1 unit requires how many hours? As per the budget, 5,000 units are produced in 10,000 hours. So as per the budget, 10,000 divided by 5,000, 1 unit requires 2 hours per unit. Now, according to this data, when I work 2 days extra, because of 2 days extra work, in that 2 days extra work, how many hours I would have got? Well, because of 2 days extra work, I would have got 500 hours per day. So 1,000 hours I got extra because of extra days. And in that 1,000 hours, how many extra units I must have made? In that 1,000 hours, how many extra units I must have made? 2 hours, I make 1 unit. So in 1,000 hours, I must have made 500 extra units. Yes, let me put that here. This is only explanation part. Calculation part will be much more easier, much more faster, right? My calendar variance shows the extra recovery because of extra days. How many extra days did I work? I worked for 2 extra days. If I work for 2 extra days, my my standard hours per day, my daily working hours is 500 hours per day. So 2 days extra work. So 2 days of extra work should have given me 1,000 hours extra. Why? Because 500 hours per day is my daily working. So 2 days extra work should have given me 1,000 hours extra, and that 1,000 hours extra should have given me 500 units extra. Why? Because 2 hours are needed for 1 unit. So it should have given me 500 units extra, and that 500 extra units should have given me how much extra recovery? Well, my recovery rate, my overhead recovery rate per unit is 20 rupees per unit. My absorption rate was 20 per unit. So 500 extra units would have given me 500 into 20, 10,000 rupees extra recovery. Would have given me rupees. Would have given me 10,000 rupees extra recovery. This 10,000 rupees extra recovery is called as my calendar variance. Now this shows that out of 20,000 rupees extra recovery, 10,000 rupees extra recovery happened just because you worked for 2 days extra. By working only 2 days extra, you recovered 10,000 rupees extra. Remaining extra recovery is because of efficiency or overtime, but 10,000 rupees extra recovery is purely because you worked for 2 days extra. Yeah. Now you notice how did I calculate that? You started with 2 days extra. You converted that into hours. You converted that into units, and then you converted that into recovery. Instead, what you could also do is you could convert the 2 days extra. You could convert that extra 2 days directly into extra recovery. Why? Because instead of identifying a recovery rate per unit, you can identify recovery rate per day. Yes, instead of identifying my absorption rate in terms of per unit, you can identify absorption rate in terms of per day itself. See, that's why I told you not to copy anything, because I will keep making spaces in between here to cover more concepts. I can identify my budgeted absorption rate per day. Instead of using absorption rate per unit, I can simply identify the rate per day. How do you do that? Well, you take the budgeted overheads 1 lakh divided by budgeted days. As per the budget, you were supposed to incur 1 lakh rupees overheads in 20 days. So per day, you were supposed to recover per day you were supposed to recover 1 lakh divided by 20. Per day you were supposed to recover rupees 5,000. Now if my recovery rate is 5,000 per day, then by working 2 days extra, then by working 2 days extra, you recover 5,000 rupees each day. So my total extra recovery is 10,000 rupees because of extra days worked. 10,000 is my extra recovery because of extra days. I hope this makes it clear, right? Okay, so that's my calendar variance. Next, we go to the capacity variance. See, apart from working 2 days extra, because of 2 days of extra working, you already got 1,000 hours extra. So, because of 2 extra days, you got 1,000 hours extra. Then accordingly, this 10,000 hours budget must have increased to 11,000 hours. Actually, your hours has increased to 11,800. Yes or no? Yeah. See, extra 2 days would have given you 1,000 hours extra. But in reality, you have worked for 1,800 hours extra. Where did that remaining 800 hours come from? Yeah, see, 1,000 out of 11,800 hours, you know that 1,000 hours extra happened because of 2 days extra. Remaining 800 hours happened extra because of what? Well, that remaining 800 hours happened extra because of overtime done every day. Because of the overtime done each day. I'll tell you. According to the budget, you were supposed to work 500 hours per day, but my actual per day is how much? Work out that. What is my actual coming up to be per day? Actual, I have worked 11,800 hours and I did that work in 22 days. So my actual work per day is 536 hours per day. 536.36 hours per day. So doesn't that indicate overtime working? Yes. How much overtime did you do? You did, instead of 500, you did 536.36. So 36.36 hours extra time you did every day. I'll show that here. My overtime done is 36.36 hours per day. Every single day of the actual, you worked for 36.36 hours. And you did that overtime for how many days? You did that overtime for all the 22 days. You did this overtime for all the 22 days. So total overtime 36.363636 for all the 22 days. So your total overtime turns out to be 800 hours. Yeah, that same 800 hours which was missing in my working. Out of 11,800 actual hours, you found out that 10,000 was as per estimate, 1,000 was extra because of extra days, but remaining 800 is extra due to what? That remaining 800 is extra because of overtime. And if 800 hours you got extra because of overtime, that 800 hours extra is like this extra hours. Now that 800 hours extra would have given you, divide by 2, 400 units extra. And that 400 units extra would have given you recovery at the rate 20 per unit. That 400 units would have given you recovery at the rate 20 per unit. So it should have given you extra recovery of 8,000 rupees. So 8,000 extra recovery happened because of 8,000 rupees extra recovery happened because of overtime working. Yes, this 8,000 rupees extra recovery is called as my calendar variance. Well, instead of calculating that 8,000 by such a long process, you could have calculated 8,000 directly from 800 hours extra. You identify the hours because of overtime and you can convert that hours directly into extra recovery. You identify the overtime hours and that overtime hours can be directly converted into extra recovery. Only thing, your recovery rate, which is per unit, you need to convert that into recovery rate per hour. Yeah, so instead of using recovery rate per unit, you make use of recovery rate per hour. So I make my budgeted absorption rate, I make one more budgeted absorption rate in terms of per hour. See, basically you have already learned all these formulas in your CA inter level. I'm just gradually introducing each formula so that you understand why do we have also many formulas, right? See, when you are solving question in the exam, you won't be spending so much time. Yes, when you are solving such questions in the exam, you won't be spending so much time in understanding. But right now, I want you to spend time in understanding because I need you to build your confidence for fixed overhead variances, right? So my absorption rate per hour can be rupees 1 lakh. Budgeted overheads 1 lakh divided by budgeted hours 10,000. Should give me rupees 10 per hour as my recovery rate per hour, and that 10 per hour I can use over here. Ten per hour into 800 hours. Well, but the question is also, how do I get this 800 hours? Well, to get that 800 hours, I will take actual hours minus the budgeted hours, but not the original budgeted hours. I will say budgeted hours in actual days. Now that's interesting. Budgeted hours in actual days. It's a new working. Let me show you that here. See, I'm first showing you the calculation, then we are deriving the formula. You saw that here. I first showed you the calculation of efficiency of the capacity variance, but then for formula purpose, I'm going reverse and explaining you the formula then, right? My actual hours minus budgeted hours in actual days. 10,000 is my budgeted hours of 20 days. So what is the budgeted hours of 22 days? If 10,000 is the budgeted hours of 20 days, budgeted hours of actual days goes like this. The budgeted hours of 20 days is 10,000 hours. So for actual days, 22 days, your budgeted hours would have been what? It will come to 11,000 hours. This simply shows that because of 2 days extra, you should have already got 11,000 hours. Remaining extra hours is due to overtime. Yeah, out of 10,000 hours, your overheads. See, out of 10,000 hours, your total hours is increasing up to 11,800 hours. So from 10,000 to 11,000 is the increase because of days, and from 11 to 11,800 is the increase because of overtime. Yeah, first that increase is because of days, remaining increase is because of overtime. Yes, that overtime is what you see in my formula here. Standard rate per hour is 10 rupees. Actual hours 11,800. Minus budgeted hours in actual days is 11,000. That leaves us with 800 hours into 10 rupees rate is 8,000 is my capacity variance. This is your capacity variance, and this explains formula for the capacity variance. See, I don't want you to just memorize the formula. I want you to understand that this formula came out of this logic. This formula came out of this logic. What I've written down here is the logic behind the formula. Obviously, you need to know the logic one time, but then later on, for solving further questions, later whenever we solve more questions, every time while solving a questions, will you again think of the logic? No, don't waste that time. Every time when you solve questions, don't think about the logic. Every time, next time when you solve questions, you simply follow the formula. But you should at least know the logic at the back of your mind. Knowing the logic will build your confidence, right? Yeah. Okay, and the last one is efficiency variance. Well, notice over here, you're working for extra hours, so you're producing extra units. Ideally, as per the budget, you are supposed to make 5,000 units in 10,000 hours. You have actually made 6,000 units. So think that 6,000 units should have taken how much standard hours? that 6,000 units should have taken standard how many hours? Well, that 6,000 units standard hours should have been what? 5,000 units. If standard hours is 10,000, then 6,000 units your standard hours should have been 12,000. However, you completed that same job in 11,800 hours. Now, if you completed that job in just 11,800 hours, so can I say it shows 200 hours you saved? Yes, this 200 hours saved is purely called as efficiency. Yeah, for producing same number of units. Yes, for producing same number of units, if your actual time taken is less, then that saved time is called as your efficiency. That time was saved due to efficiency. Well, that gives me my efficiency variance. Directly formula I will explain. Standard hours 12,000. Actually, you completed that job in 11,800 hours. So 200 hours were saved due to efficiency. And that 200 hours efficiency at the rate of 10 rupees per hour will give me the efficiency variance. You see, the efficiency variance over here is exactly same like efficiency variance in your labor. You remember under labor variances, I told you which variance is called as efficiency variance. Okay, I showed that in my working here. Under labor variances, your labor time variance is also called as efficiency variance. Yes, and your formula for labor time variance, your formula for labor efficiency variance, same formula will exist in fixed overheads. Dekho, here also you did standard hours minus actual hours. Well, under fixed overheads also you will do same standard hours minus actual hours into standard rate per hour. So my formula for efficiency variance under fixed overheads is the same as labor efficiency variance. Same as variable overhead time variance. All of them are basically the same kind of variances. I hope that is clear. Yes. So that explains all my three variances under the fixed overhead volume variance. Once again, my extra volume might be because of extra days, or could be because of extra hours each day, like overtime, or it could be because of efficiency. See, this is basically indicating extra hours per day. Extra hours per day could be due to overtime or could be due to extra workers that you employ. Anything could be the reason. It's not necessarily only due to overtime. Let me put that better. It is extra recovery due to extra hours per day. That extra hours per day, might be because of overtime or due to increase in a number of workers. Yeah, it could be either due to overtime or it could be because of increase in your number of workers. If number of workers will increase, then daily labor hours will increase, right? But generally, let us assume it is due to overtime, so it is easy to understand here, right? Okay, so that explains everything about fixed overhead variances. Well, this completes all discussions under fixed overhead variances.